Florida is still being called a place of tourism growth, even without Canadian visitors. That's what the news says. It sounds positive, doesn't it? But is it really true? Ask the restaurants that shut down. Ask the doctors who lost more than half their patients in winter. Walk through coastal towns that used to be busy with people. Now, many of them are quiet, like after a storm. Does that feel like growth? On top of this, a new federal rule came in. Canadians staying in Florida for more than 30 days must now give fingerprints and go through security checks. To them, the message was clear. You are no longer welcome here. So, in just a few months, many winter visitors who used to spend tens of thousands of dollars each year decided to leave. On paper, tourism in Florida still looks strong. But in reality, billions of dollars disappeared along with one-way flights back to Canada. Paper growth does not feed communities. The press only tells half the story. In this video, we'll look at the other half. We'll uncover 7 hard truths about how politics ruined a billion-dollar winter season. This video is for commentary and analysis only. Now let's get started. Many people think a Canadian family booking a hotel only brings a few $100s to Florida. In reality, they bring an entire economy with them. The average American tourist visits Florida for a week and spends about $1,200. Then they go home with sandy clothes and souvenirs. But Canadians are different. They don't just visit. They live here for 3 to 6 months. And each household spends around $33,000 in just one winter. That's like 20 years of buying coffee every morning, or 15 years of beef for a family. And Florida used to have hundreds of thousands of these visitors every year. They kept grocery stores full. They gave doctors full appointment books. They made coastal towns lively. This wasn't just tourism. It was a relationship that kept the state alive. But the government treated them like short-term guests. That was the big mistake. A week of tourism might help hotels. 6 months of residency supports hospitals, supermarkets, and construction workers. One doctor in Sarasota gave an example. He had a Canadian patient who booked knee surgery a year in advance. She came in November, had surgery in January, and stayed until March to recover. In 2024, the clinic was full. In 2025, after Canadians left, the schedule was completely empty. What was once a busy medical center is now struggling. This is not a single case. It is the bigger picture. Restaurants lost customers. Builders lost contracts for roofing and repairs. Winter sports facilities closed because they had no members left. Politicians thought losing a few Canadian seniors didn't matter. But it destroyed the winter economy. The most loyal visitors, people who paid taxes, invested in homes, and supported local charities, were treated like criminals. Florida didn't just lose money. It lost its backbone. And it all came down to one rule. A rule that sounded small but had huge effects. There's a saying from one Canadian visitor: "Home doesn't fingerprint you like a criminal." And that's what happened in Florida in 2025. Any Canadian staying longer than 30 days had to be fingerprinted. On the surface, it seemed like routine paperwork. But for someone who had owned a home in Naples for 20 years, paid taxes, and volunteered in hospitals, it felt insulting. It was a cold message: you are not welcome. One woman from Regina, Saskatchewan, had lived part of the year in Naples for 23 years. She knew everyone in her community. She volunteered at the hospital. But during an immigration check, she was treated like a stranger. She sold her $340,000 apartment for only $265,000, taking a huge loss, just to leave Florida. And she wasn't alone. Hundreds of Canadians are selling their homes and cutting ties. Florida lost billions of dollars, not because of a hurricane or a recession, but because of one bad policy. And here's the scary part. If a simple rule can drive away the most loyal customers, could the same thing happen to your community? Because when trust is broken, money disappears. And then the domino effect begins. An economy is like a string of Christmas lights. One bad bulb, and the whole line goes dark. In Florida, Canadians were the first bulb. Once they left, everything else followed. Winter rentals dropped by 31%. Flights from Canada fell by 38%. Property searches dropped by 45%. Doctors lost up to 60% of their winter patients. Hospitals cut staff. Builders lost most of their contracts. Supermarkets saw sales fall by millions in just 1 month. Stores cut jobs. Restaurants had empty tables. Taxi drivers lost riders. Even beach vendors had no customers. It's the same story as when a factory closes in a small town. At first, only a few jobs are lost. But soon the grocery store has no buyers, the school has no tuition, and the whole community declines. Florida created this problem not because of global issues, but because of one short-sighted decision. Yet politicians still say tourism is growing. Ask the shop owners who closed. Ask the nurses who lost shifts. For them, Florida now feels like a ghost town in the middle of sunshine. And while Florida is losing, other destinations are winning. They're taking the very customers Florida pushed away. The 2025 paradox is clear. Florida is losing tourists. Mexico is gaining more. Mexico's tourism grew by 78%. In Florida, politicians talk about America First tourism. But while they celebrate, other countries are welcoming tourists and taking Florida's place. Mexico started a program called Amigos del Norte. It means, Friends of the North. The name feels friendly to Canadian families. But it is more than just a name. The program offers long-term visas. It gives access to English-speaking doctors. It even allows easy money transfers with a Canadian bank. While Florida takes fingerprints, Mexico offers a handshake. One Canadian couple owned a home in Fort Myers for 22 years. Every winter they stayed from November to March. They spent tens of thousands of dollars on services and home repairs. But after being treated like criminals, they sold everything. They bought a beachfront apartment in Yucatan, Mexico. There, the government welcomed them warmly. The husband said in a local newspaper, "Here we are welcomed as neighbors, not treated like suspects." Portugal took a different path. They didn't just want to replace Florida. They wanted to become the luxury version of Florida. Their Golden Visa program gives Canadians a place to stay in winter. It also gives the chance to become EU residents. Europe offers stable healthcare. Costs are lower. Culture, cuisine, and wine are seen as better than Florida. Canadians are welcomed in Lisbon, Porto, and the Algarve with smiles instead of paperwork. Florida's message is simple. You need us more than we need you. Mexico and Portugal's message is different. We need you, and we will prove it. That is why Canadians are not just vacationing. They are buying homes and moving long-term. Florida's problem is not sunshine. Mexico has sunshine. Portugal has sunshine. The Caribbean has sunshine. What Florida lacks is respect. Without respect, no beach is beautiful enough to keep customers. Florida thinks American tourists can replace Canadians. But the math does not work. A Canadian household, called Snowbirds, spends about $33,000 in 6 winter months. An American family spends about $1,200 during a one-week vacation. That means Florida needs 28 American families to replace one Canadian family. Look at Naples. In 2024, hotels were full from November to March with Canadian snowbirds. Staff knew the guests well, even their favorite drinks. But in 2025, Canadians were gone. Americans came for 3 days. They ate a couple of meals. Then they left. The hotel cut half of its staff. This shows the difference. Canadians come to live. Americans come for short visits. You cannot build a winter economy on short visits. The result is bigger than money. Communities are breaking apart. The hockey league closed. Canadian churches shut down. Winter towns became silent. Losing money hurts budgets. Losing community hurts hearts. Canadians brought more than money. They brought culture, friendships, and traditions. These became part of Florida life. But in 2025, these connections started to disappear. A concierge in Naples said Canadian guests were like friends. They brought gifts. They remembered her family. They came back every year. Now they are gone. She lost work hours. She also lost part of her life. Local Americans lost too. Retirees no longer have Canadian friends around. Coffee gatherings ended. Small hockey games ended. Neighborhood barbecues ended. Florida towns now have empty condos, silent churches, and closed clubs. Resorts and hotels cannot replace that. Trust and community take decades to build. They can be destroyed in months. Meanwhile, politicians say tourism is strong. But workers see the truth. Nurses have fewer patients. Restaurants and hotels are cutting jobs. Rental cars and airports are struggling. Thousands of families are paying the price while leaders ignore the problem. Florida did not need a hurricane or recession. Wrong political choices were enough to collapse the economy. This is not only about Florida. It is also a warning for Arizona, Nevada, California, and other states. Tourism depends on trust and welcome. If tourists feel unwelcome, they leave. And they rarely return. Florida's winter economy collapsed in 6 months. Empty condos, quiet airports, and closed communities replaced what used to be a paradise. The lesson is clear. Never underestimate loyal customers. Once they leave, they take your economy and your community with them. Florida lost money. Florida lost community. Florida lost its winter soul. And it all happened because of political choices that disrespected longtime visitors. So here is the question. What was Florida's biggest mistake? Was it disrespecting Canadian customers? Or putting political slogans above people's lives? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I would like to hear what you think. If you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. That way you won't miss future analysis. This video is for information and analysis only. It is not financial, political, or legal advice. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.